People think the desert is empty. That's the first mistake. Out there, where the Navajo Nation stretches farther than the eye can follow, the land doesn't need to move to feel alive. The silence does enough. At night, the air listens. The sand remembers footsteps long after they fade. And sometimes, the desert watches back. I didn't know that then. I was 18, fresh out of high school, stupidly in love, and convinced that nothing truly bad could happen to people like us. The weekend it started, my girlfriend Gigi asked if I wanted to stay with her at her grandparents' house while they were out of town. They lived deep in an ultra-wealthy neighborhood called Kayenta, a pocket of multi-million-dollar estates scattered across acres of private desert land. 30 minutes from town. No neighbors close enough to hear you scream. The kind of place where night feels heavier than it should. They needed someone to house-sit because of their cat, Jack. Gigi's grandma adored him, and he was used to roaming free during the day. Someone had to be there to make sure he came home before dark. There's only one rule, Gigi told me as we packed the car. What's that? Don't let Jack out after sunset. I laughed. It sounded like an overprotective grandma thing. Cats are cats, right? We drove out just before dusk, following a narrow road that twisted between red dunes and sagebrush. The pavement ended, and we spent another 10 minutes crawling up a dirt road that felt like it led off the edge of the world. Then the house appeared. A massive adobe structure rose from the desert like it had grown there, earth-colored walls, ceramic tile floors, Navajo tapestries hanging inside like quiet witnesses. The place was beautiful. Too beautiful. Built like a maze, with rooms branching into more rooms, hallways that forked, windows everywhere. Too many windows. The kitchen and living room walls were almost entirely glass, framing the desert in every direction. No curtains. Just open views into miles of darkness once night fell. I remember thinking how peaceful it was. Jack was waiting for us in the master suite den, a big black cat with green eyes and the confidence of something that knew the land better than we ever would. Gigi scratched under his chin, and he purred like a motor. They let him come and go, she said when I asked about the cat flap in the door. But not after dark. He knows better. Jack stretched, slipped through the flap, and vanished into the evening. That should have bothered me more than it did. Before night fully settled, Gigi took me hiking through the surrounding desert. She knew the land well, led me through washes and ravines, away from the houses, until the world felt wide and empty again. We watched the sunset from a hilltop. The sky bled red and purple. Stars punched through the dark like holes into something deeper. That's when Gigi said something strange. "There's so much out there," she murmured, staring at the valley below. "Things people never see. Things that don't want to be remembered." By the time we started back, the sun was gone. Halfway home, I felt it. That sudden chill. The instinctive certainty that something was wrong. Like the desert had noticed us. I didn't hear footsteps. Didn't see movement. But my body knew. "You're being watched." Gigi stopped walking. "I think something's following us," she whispered. And that's when she told me the second rule of the desert. You don't run. We walked the rest of the way in silence, my skin crawling, the darkness pressing closer with every step. Whatever was out there stayed just out of sight, close enough to feel, far enough to never be seen. When the house lights finally came into view, I laughed in relief. I shouldn't have. Because the moment we stepped inside, the fear vanished completely. And I would later understand, that was the real warning. Something had already followed us home. The moment the sliding glass door shut behind us, it was like stepping into a different world. Warmth returned to my skin. The tight pressure in my chest loosened. My thoughts slowed, smoothed out, as if whatever fear I'd been carrying couldn't cross the threshold with us. Gigi noticed it too. We looked at each other and laughed, real laughter, shaky and relieved. "Okay," she said, exhaling. No more night hikes. Ever. Deal, I replied, meaning it. The house felt safe. Inviting. Almost protective. I wandered through it again while Gigi went to find something to drink. Every room branched into another, living room to library, library to hallway, hallway to bedrooms. The layout didn't follow logic so much as suggestion, like the house wanted you to forget where you started. And the windows. During the day, they were beautiful. At night, they became mirrors. The desert vanished into pitch black, leaving only our reflections staring back at us. I went to check on Jack. He wasn't in the den where we'd left him earlier. Not in the living room. Not curled up on any of the couches or chairs. His food and water bowls sat untouched. That uneasy feeling returned, faint, but present. Gigi. I called out. She answered from the library, her voice echoing faintly. I found something. The library stole my attention the moment I stepped inside. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined every wall, packed tight with volumes, history, anthropology, folklore. Many were about the Navajo people. Their beliefs. Their warnings. One book sat slightly apart from the others, its spine worn more than the rest. I pulled it free. Ye Nald Lushiai. Skinwalkers. The text was split between English and Navajo. The English sections didn't tell stories, they analyzed them. Dissected them. Tried to explain the unexplainable. I flipped to an illustration and felt my stomach drop. A creature stared back at me from the page. Part wolf. Part bird. Antlers crowning its skull. Human eyes, too intelligent, too knowing. Don't read that. I nearly jumped out of my skin. Gigi stood behind me, holding a cheap bottle of rum. Her face had gone pale. My grandma hates when people touch that book, she said quietly. I used to have nightmares about it. You believe this stuff? I asked, half joking. She hesitated. She does. Grandma says they're real. Not stories. Records. She opened a drawer beneath the desk. Inside sat an old revolver and a box of bullets. Don't freak out, she said quickly. She keeps it because she thinks. Because she thinks skinwalkers are real. I finished. The bullets were strange. Each one had been hand-loaded. I noticed ash packed inside the casings. She says ash can hurt them, Gigi whispered. And that the only way to kill one is to call it by its human name. Something about that made my skin prickle. A human name. Hey, I said slowly. Have you seen Jack since we got back? Her eyes widened. Oh no. We searched the house together, calling his name, checking every room. Nothing. The cat flap hung open, swaying gently. He never stays out after dark, Gigi muttered. Never. She stepped onto the porch, flashlight in hand, calling his name into the desert. Can you check the garage? She asked me. He likes it out there sometimes. The garage sat 10 yards from the house, detached and dark. I told myself not to be stupid as I crossed the open ground, but the feeling from earlier crept back in with every step. Inside, the garage was empty. No Jack. As I turned to leave, I heard it. A soft exhale. Right behind me. I spun around and flipped the light back on. Nothing. Except for a few black hairs on a workbench beneath an open window. Jack. I called, stepping outside. The desert answered with silence. Then something moved in the sagebrush. Relief washed over me. There you are, buddy.
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
I raised my flashlight. The thing in the brush stood up. And I knew, before I fully saw it, that it was not a cat. At first, my brain tried to make it something familiar. A coyote. A stray dog. Anything but what it actually was. It stepped out of the sagebrush slowly, deliberately, like it knew I was already trapped in the moment. Its body was long and wrong, too tall at the shoulders, too thin through the middle. Its legs bent strangely, joints angled like they belonged to a different creature altogether. Hooves. Not paws. I felt the blood drain from my face. The flashlight beam shook in my hand as it climbed up its body. Patchy fur clung to stretched skin, rippling as it breathed. Its chest expanded with a slow, controlled inhale, then exhaled, just as softly as it had in the garage. That sound crawled straight into my bones. When it raised its head, I forgot how to breathe. The eyes were wrong. Too close together. Too expressive. They weren't reflecting the light the way an animal's should. They were looking at me, studying me, like a person trying to remember a face. Dread woke up inside me. Every instinct screamed to run, but Gigi's voice echoed in my head. You don't run from predators. So I didn't. I backed away slowly, never turning my back, never breaking eye contact. The thing mirrored me perfectly, one step forward for every step I took back. It didn't rush. It didn't threaten. It didn't need to. The longer I stared into its eyes, the harder it became to think. My thoughts slipped and tangled. The desert seemed to tilt. The night pressed closer. Stop looking at me, I whispered. It exhaled again. Almost like a laugh. The porch light behind me grew brighter with every step. Safety was right there. Just a few more feet. The thing never closed the distance, but never let it widen either. It kept me exactly where it wanted me. Close enough to feel its presence, far enough to make escape feel earned. Finally, my hand brushed the glass door handle. I slid it open and stumbled inside, slamming it shut and locking it with shaking fingers. The creature stepped up to the glass. It stood so close I could see condensation bloom where its breath touched the window. Its eyes searched my face, not angry, not hungry. Curious. Then it turned and walked back into the desert like it had never been there at all. The moment it vanished, the spell broke. Sound rushed back into my ears. My heartbeat thundered. I realized my entire body had been vibrating, like a live wire. I staggered toward the master suite. Gigi, I called, forcing my voice to sound normal. She rushed toward me from the porch, panic etched across her face. Did you find him? I shook my head. Before I could tell her what I'd seen, a sound drifted out of the darkness. A soft, familiar meow. We both froze. Then Jack padded into the porch light like nothing had happened. Gigi scooped him up, scolding him through relieved laughter. You scared me to death. I laughed too hard, too fast. The thing I saw couldn't have been real. My brain had filled in gaps with fear and folklore and shadows. That's what people do. Jack was fine. We were fine. We locked the cat flap. Or at least, we thought we did. Later, sprawled on the couch in the den, the TV murmuring in the background, normalcy returned. Jack purred beside us. The desert felt far away again. Until the cat flap swung open. Both of us jumped. Damn it, Gigi said. We forgot to lock it. I stood up, and froze. Jack was still on the couch. Another black cat stood by the flap. Identical. They locked eyes and erupted into snarls and claws, a violent blur of black fur. I stomped and shouted, and they scattered into different rooms. Silence fell. We stared at each other. Which one is Jack? I asked. Gigi didn't answer. Because she didn't know. We separated them instinctively, each grabbing the nearest black shape and retreating into different rooms. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The cat in my arms struggled for a second, then relaxed. It pressed its head into my chest and purred, just like Jack always did. Familiar. Warm. Real. Gigi stood across the hall, holding the other cat at arm's length. Hers hissed, claws scraping against her sleeves, eyes wide and feral. "That one's not Jack," she said firmly. "He's never like this." Relief washed through me. Of course. It made sense. We'd figured it out. We opened the den door and shooed the aggressive cat back outside. It bolted through the darkness without looking back. Gigi slammed the door shut and finally, locked the cat flap. "That smell," I said suddenly. It hit me all at once. Thick. Rotting. Sweet and sour at the same time, like spoiled meat left in the sun. Gigi gagged. Ugh. Cats release pheromones when they fight. It's probably that. But the smell made my stomach churn in a way fear hadn't before. It reminded me of the creature's breath fogging the glass. Of the way my thoughts had gone soft when it looked at me. "Let's move to the living room," I said. "I can't be in here." She agreed quickly. We carried Jack with us and collapsed onto the couch. The living room TV glowed softly, casting reflections across the massive windows. Outside was nothing but darkness. Or so it looked. As the minutes passed, that sense returned. The feeling of being watched. I couldn't see anything beyond the glass, but I knew something was there. Standing just close enough to see us clearly while we stared back at our own reflections. "Do your grandparents seriously not have curtains?" I asked. Gigi shook her head. "You've got that feeling again, don't you?" I nodded. She stood up. "I'm going to take a shower. Go hang out in the guest room while I'm gone, okay? There's only one window in there." It sounded like a good idea. I was halfway down the hall when I passed the library again. The book was still open on the desk. So was the revolver. Something pulled me closer. I flipped the page. The English text described the skinwalker's abilities: deception, mimicry, manipulation of emotion. It spoke of how they could instill unbearable dread, or overwhelming comfort. How they could convince you that you were safe. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Gigi. "Wait." I frowned. The shower water had just turned on. Why was she texting me? Another buzz. "Don't come in here." My stomach dropped. I looked up. Down the hall, I could see into the master suite. Steam curled out of the shower room. A woman's leg, Gigi's leg, was visible behind the tiled wall, water dripping down her skin. "Hey," I called out. "What's up?" "Come join me," Gigi's voice replied. Perfect. Identical. Warm. My phone vibrated again. I'm not in the shower. Every muscle in my body locked. I stared at the leg. At the familiar curve of her calf. The little scar on her ankle. It couldn't be anything else. And yet. The voice spoke again. "Babe." I took a step back. That's when the den door creaked open behind me. Gigi peeked out, pale and shaking, phone clenched in her hand. She lifted it so I could see the screen. "Get to the car. I'm going out the porch." The voice from the shower softened. "Don't keep me waiting." The dread wrapped around me like arms. And I finally understood. It wasn't chasing us. It was replacing us. I moved slowly. Painfully slowly. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs felt like they were wading through wet cement. I backed away from the bedroom, never taking my eyes off the hallway, terrified that if I moved too fast it would notice. Behind me, the voice from the shower followed. Soft. Patient. Loving. "Where are you going?" it asked. "You don't have to be scared." The front door creaked open. Cool night air rushed in, sharp and real, and Gigi slipped inside. She looked wild-eyed, barefoot, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "We need to leave," she whispered. "Right now."
Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.
I nodded and reached for her hand. That's when the other Gigi stepped into the living room. She was naked, dripping wet, hair plastered to her shoulders, water pooling at her feet. Steam curled off her skin. She looked embarrassed, confused, hurt. "Why are you running from me?" she asked, tilting her head, scrunching her face into that familiar, playful frown. The dread evaporated. Just like that. My thoughts smoothed out. My chest loosened. This was ridiculous. Of course this was Gigi. You can't fake that, the way she stood, the way her eyes searched my face. I took a step toward her. "Don't," the real Gigi hissed behind me. "That's not me." The wet one flinched. "Babe, what is she talking about?" I looked between them. Same height. Same freckles. Same brown eyes. Same voice. My brain broke trying to reconcile it. "We need the gun," I said suddenly. I bolted for the library. Footsteps thundered behind me, 2 sets. I slammed the door, snatched the revolver from the desk, cocked the hammer, and spun around just as both Gigis skidded to a stop in the doorway. The gun felt impossibly heavy. "Put it down," the wet one said calmly. "You're scaring me." "She's lying," the dry one snapped. "She tried to lure you into the shower." "She's projecting," the wet one countered. "Skinwalkers manipulate. You know that." My hands shook so badly the barrel wavered between them. "Okay," I said, breath hitching. "Okay. We'll figure this out." The dry Gigi held up her phone. "I was texting you. You saw it. That's proof." "She stole my phone while I was in the shower," the wet one said instantly. "That doesn't prove anything," the dry one said, panic rising. "I'll die if you shoot me," the dry one added softly. "But it won't kill her. If I'm dead, you'll know." The comfort seeped back in. A false calm settled over me, warm and persuasive. I pointed the gun at the wet one. "Where did we meet?" "School," she said immediately. "By the lockers." "Too easy." I shifted the gun. "Whose class?" "Mr. Dale and Mrs. Brody," the dry one answered without hesitation. "She can read your mind," the wet one snapped. "That's what witches do." "That's not true," the dry one shouted. "They can't read minds, they deceive." 2 identical sets of eyes begged me to choose. I touched the trigger. The wet one's eyes widened. And then she ran. She vanished back toward the master suite just as Gigi grabbed my arm. "Now." We sprinted for the front door, but something slammed into it from behind, rattling the frame. We ducked as a body crashed into the wood above us. The wet one came again. We fled back into the library and slammed the door shut, hearts pounding. Silence. Then footsteps. Slow. Wet. Stopping just outside. A voice purred through the door. "Here, kitty kitty." Neither of us breathed. The footsteps outside the library door were slow, deliberate, each one placed with care, like it knew exactly where we were standing. Water dripped onto the tile. I could hear it clearly, each drop echoing in the silence. Drip. Step. Drip. My fingers clenched tighter around the revolver. Gigi leaned close to my ear. "There's another way out," she whispered. "Through the bathroom. Guest room window." The handle on the library door twitched. "Don't go," the voice crooned softly. Not Gigi's voice now, something older, layered, like several people speaking at once. "You're safe with me." Dread stirred, stretching awake. We moved. Gigi eased open the back door of the library inch by inch. The hinges whispered in protest, and we froze, listening. No footsteps followed. No breath. Nothing. We slipped into the bathroom, then into the hall beyond. Halfway down the hallway, the floor creaked. Wet footsteps answered immediately. They were closer now. We split without thinking. Gigi darted right into the laundry room, and I ducked left into the guest room, shutting the door as quietly as I could. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure it would give me away. I crouched behind the door, gun raised, staring at the thin crack between the frame and the wall. The footsteps came closer. Closer. They stopped just outside. A shadow slid under the door. I covered my mouth to keep from making a sound. After a long moment, the footsteps moved on, retreating down the hall toward the library. I exhaled shakily and slipped out of the guest room. "Gigi," I whispered. No answer. I crossed into the laundry room. Empty. Panic surged through me. Had she made it outside? Had she been caught? I noticed a second door in the back of the room, one that led directly into the living room. I stepped through. That's when I heard my voice. "Gigi," it whispered urgently from the hallway. "I saw you in the guest room. Let's make a run for the car." Ice flooded my veins. The creature was using me now. Footsteps came from the master suite. Gigi's footsteps. I sprinted into the living room. And stopped dead. It was standing there, waiting. It wore my face perfectly, my posture, my expression, even the slight tremor in my hands. It smiled when it saw me, like it had been expecting this moment. Gigi rounded the corner behind it and froze. "Stop!" I screamed, aiming the gun at the thing that looked like me. It turned slowly, meeting my gaze. Looking into my own eyes felt wrong in a way I can't describe. Like reality folding inward. Like identity wasn't solid anymore. The creature laughed in my voice. "Why are you pointing that at yourself?" My vision tunneled. A horrible thought surfaced. What if I was the copy? What if I'd already lost, and this was the lie trying to convince itself it was real? Dread opened its mouth wide. The gun slipped from my fingers and clattered to the floor. My knees buckled. The creature stepped toward me, shedding my shape like a coat. Its face shifted, back into Gigi's. Soft. Loving. Familiar. A light seemed to glow behind her, washing away the fear. She held out her hand. "I can make it stop," she said gently. "No more fear. No more confusion. You can rest." Bliss flooded me. Warm. Heavy. Inviting. I took her hand. And then. The loudest sound I've ever heard tore the world apart. The gunshot shattered the spell. The world snapped back into focus like a rubber band breaking against my skull. Pain exploded through my shoulder as I hit the floor hard, air punched from my lungs. The hand I'd been holding vanished. I rolled onto my side, gasping, ears ringing, vision swimming. Smoke hung thick in the living room, curling toward the ceiling. Gigi stood near the front door, both hands wrapped around the revolver. She was screaming my name. I tried to answer, but all that came out was a wet cough. The thing that had been wearing her shape staggered backward, clutching its chest. The bullet hadn't killed it, just torn through flesh that didn't behave like flesh. The wound moved, closing, like something beneath the skin was rearranging itself. Its face twisted, not into anger, but disappointment. "Why would you do that?" it asked softly. The voice was wrong again. Too deep. Too many tones layered together, like echoes bouncing inside a canyon. Gigi fired again. This time the bullet took its jaw clean off. The creature collapsed, but instead of bleeding out, its body spread, limbs bending the wrong way, bones melting, skin sagging like wet clay. It dragged itself toward the hallway, leaving dark streaks across the floor that evaporated seconds later. I crawled toward Gigi, every movement agony. "Don't look at it," she sobbed. "Don't listen. It wants you to feel safe." The creature laughed, wet and broken, and vanished into the master bedroom. Silence followed. Heavy. Expectant. I pulled myself upright against the wall, shaking uncontrollably. Gigi rushed to my side, pressing her jacket against my shoulder wound. "It tried to take you," she whispered. "It almost got you." I nodded, tears burning my eyes. "It knew everything." "Yeah," she said hoarsely. "That's how it hunts." A sound came from the bedroom. Not footsteps. Breathing. Deep. Slow. Patient. Then the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the house. Gigi grabbed my hand. "Outside. Now." We ran. The front door burst open, and the desert night rushed in, cold and infinite. Stars burned overhead, sharp and uncaring. We didn't stop running until we reached the car. I fumbled with the keys, hands slick with blood and sweat. Behind us, something moved in the dark. Not fast. Confident. The creature stepped into the porch light. It was no longer pretending. Its shape was tall and wrong, spine bent backward, limbs too long, skin stretched thin over shifting forms. Its face kept changing, Gigi, me, strangers, animals, none of them staying long enough to focus on. It smiled with too many teeth. "You can't take it with you," it said calmly. "This land remembers me." The engine finally roared to life. The creature tilted its head. Curious. We peeled out of the driveway just as it lunged forward, slamming into the hood hard enough to crack the windshield. For a split second, its face filled the glass, mine, eyes empty, mouth stretched into a grin that split too wide. Then it fell away. The house disappeared behind us, swallowed by darkness. We didn't speak as the miles passed. Not until the first hint of dawn crept over the horizon. Gigi finally broke the silence. "It's not dead," she said quietly. "We didn't kill it." I stared at the road ahead, heart still pounding. "No," I agreed. "We just survived it." She swallowed. "That thing doesn't hunt bodies." I nodded. "It hunts belief." We never went back. Not for the car we left behind. Not for the clothes. Not for the house. By sunrise, we were miles away from the Navajo Nation border, parked at a gas station that smelled like burnt coffee and diesel fuel. The world looked normal again, too normal. People laughed. A trucker complained about the price of fuel. A radio played an old country song. It felt wrong. Gigi cleaned my shoulder wound in the bathroom sink. The bullet had grazed me more than anything, but the pain was deep and stubborn, like it had settled into the bone. "You're lucky," she said quietly. I didn't answer. Luck had nothing to do with it. We didn't talk about what happened. Not really. Every time we tried, the words felt thin, inadequate, like describing a nightmare to someone who'd never slept. We drove for hours. By the time we reached a motel, exhaustion crushed us. Neither of us wanted to sleep, but our bodies didn't care. We collapsed onto separate beds, lights blazing, television on full volume. I dreamt anyway. In the dream, I was back in the house. The desert pressed against the windows like a living thing. The walls breathed. The floorboards whispered my name. A voice spoke from behind me. "You left too much behind." I woke up screaming. Gigi was already sitting up, eyes wide. "You heard it too," she said. I nodded. That's when we noticed the dirt. Fine red sand coated the windowsill. The carpet near the door. The soles of our shoes, even though we'd cleaned them. The desert had come with us. We left before sunrise. Weeks passed. Then months. Life tried to return to normal. Jobs. Bills. Small talk. Smiles that didn't reach our eyes. But the cracks stayed. Sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I hear Gigi calling my name from another room, even when she's sitting right beside me. Sometimes she says she hears me whispering when I'm not home. We stopped answering voices unless we could see each other's faces. We set rules. No mirrors in the bedroom. No showering alone after dark. No following sounds we can't explain. And most importantly, never, ever assume safety. Last week, I woke up to Gigi standing over me, smiling softly in the dark. For half a second, the comfort almost won. Then I noticed she wasn't breathing. I screamed. She screamed. The figure vanished like smoke, leaving only the smell of wet earth behind. We didn't sleep after that. Here's the thing no one tells you about monsters like that. They don't need claws. They don't need teeth. They just need you to believe. Believe that something familiar can't hurt you. Believe that home is always safe. Believe that what's wearing a human face must be human. The elders were right. There are things in the desert older than names. And once they learn your shape, they never forget it. If you ever find yourself out there, where the land goes quiet and the stars feel too close, and someone you love calls your name, make sure you can see them first. Because some things don't follow rules. They follow you.
The Silent Screams, the channel of interesting horror stories. If you are new on this channel, then don't forget to subscribe The Silent Screams and press the bell icon for interesting stories.